Switzerland. Okay. All right. Okay, we have people joining. That's good. So hello everyone. I'm Luisa. I'm from Algrano, and I'm going to be your host, ring announcer, and pundit in our very first training session of the year here with Alice and Amaris. We're going to do a little bit of like just small talk and housekeeping to give people some time to join because we're starting on time, which is good. And everyone's internet's working, which is great as well. We don't have any technical problems. I just want to introduce everyone as well to Mafer here. Mafer, she's going to be taking note of questions. You can ask questions as we go and as Alice and Amaris share their experiences. Mafer will take note of them to read them to both of them afterwards when we have a Q&A at the end. And if you need any help, if you have any issues, just like give her a shout as well, and she can help you. So before I hand over to Alice and Amari so they can introduce themselves and a little bit about what they do, I want to talk a little bit about why we invited them to talk about these topics. So back in 2023, when we were running the interviews for Agrono's market trends reports, and when I say we, I mean the wonderful researcher Erica Costa actually did the interviews. We heard a lot of the same things from the roasters that we were talking to. Everyone was kind of like expecting that 2022 was going to be this comeback year after COVID. 2023 would be this growth year. Things would not just pick up, but they would speed up again. And then as we went into 2022, inflation picked up. In February, the war in Ukraine started. And then people went from like this 2 years of lockdown, not knowing if the government would extend the stimulus packages or not, for how long they would do it. And we jumped straight from that to like a period of high costs, high operational costs, tight labor market, etc. So people had to kind of like restructure business, fire staff actually, and raise costs. And then after that, they had to restructure the business again, hire back staff, raise costs again. So it was very tiring. So the sense that we got from people is that they were they were saying like explicitly, we're very tired. And it felt like everyone had taken a beating. So that's why we went for a Rocky theme webinar or like a training series, because I don't know if you've seen any of the Rocky films, but if you have, you know that Rocky in a single fight, he takes so many punches to the face. It's probably like a lot more than a real life boxer would take in an entire career. It's pretty bad. So we thought that was like a perfect metaphor for this. So we also ran for the trends report. We also ran a survey. And in the survey, we saw like, yes, people are more risk averse because of everything that's going on. Their operational costs are going up, and their consumers are more price sensitive, or they're looking for coffees that are still good, but they can buy at more affordable prices. At the same time, we saw that like demand from both wholesale and retail was starting to go back up. The roasters were getting more requests for information about like how the coffee is sourced, who it was sourced from, how it was produced from both like an ethical and environmental point of view. They were getting that more from consumers, and that there were more people coming to buy good quality coffee that maybe before they were buying supermarket coffee. So there was like this new market segment that people could tap into. So if it was a very difficult period, and there's no doubt about that, it still is now, there's also like there's a lot of opportunity here that people can explore, and that they can like introduce new ideas and new strategies for the business to like maybe tap into these new customers that are coming to specialty, and to engage these customers more, to keep them loyal, etc. And all the roasters that we spoke to, as well as our Alice and Amaris here, they were also very committed to their relationships with the producers, and everything that they were doing, they had that in mind, and they wanted to make sure that that was respected, that had continuation, etc. So even if they're not going to buy, like, oh, I'm not going to buy the top-notch quality coffees of these producers at the very highest price. They're buying like the coffees that producers have the most of to sell, like, or maybe their farm blends or their regional blends, for example, like the coffees that can generate more impact for them in the end, because it's what they have most volume of. The issue is for roasters is that sensory-wise, these coffees, they might be a little bit harder to differentiate. So when you're building a menu and you're creating the offer for the roastery, you're like, oh, I'm not just saying this is a coffee X from farm Y and it tastes like this. You have maybe you have to think about other ways that you can explore to make that coffee stand out for the consumer, to engage that consumer to buy the coffee. That's not just based on sensory or sensory in a flavor note type of way. So that's why I wanted Alice and Amaris to share the experiences. They're from very different markets and backgrounds. So Alice is in Paris, Amaris is in New York. But Alice did a lot of thinking about how to balance accessibility and the need to remain different. And Amaris made it a lot, like she dug a lot into her sales, into coffee performance, and how she could bring that to her menu. So I'll stop talking now. I'm sorry if I took too long. Alice, I'll start with you. Can you introduce yourself and your role at Kutum, please?
Sure. So first of all, thanks a lot to Algorand, to Luisa for organizing this webinar. I'm really happy to be part of it. So right now I'm working for Kutum as responsible of sourcing, green buying, and sustainability. So I'm in relation with coffee producers. And I'm trying to build like a sustainable strategy to be sure that our customers and ourselves can keep like enjoying delightful coffee and make sure that producer can still live out of it, basically.
Thank you, Amaris.
Hi, I'm Amaris Gutierrez Ray. My title is VP of Coffee for Joe Coffee Company in New York City, but that basically means I run the whole coffee program from green sourcing to managing the roastery and production fulfillment out of our facility in the city, and the coffee programming, like education for our staff and for our customers, and a little bit about how we market our coffees as well. A big one.
So thank you, and thank you very much for taking the time as well. We were talking like 30 minutes before the webinar started. We were probably already started the webinar, and Alice, I think we can jump right back into like where we were. We were talking about like kind of like from a general sense, like where you are and what you're perceiving in your market in terms of what's happening with customers and how you're trying to meet their needs at this time. Can you talk a little bit about that to people?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not gonna mention again like the surprise and like the difficulties that we could all have met in the coffee sector in Europe, at least in 2023, sorry. Inflation was a big issue, but also we could observe like some change in the demand, in the way the consumers are apprehending coffee, from like willing to have more accessible coffees, also some willing to get more surprise out of coffee. So before being able like to make all this observation on what's happening, it's important like to target, to understand to which time of consumer we are addressing, we are offering our coffees, because depending on the type of segmentation of market that you're gonna talk to, you're gonna probably have different kind of profile of customers and profile of coffee that you are offering. Even if we are, as far as Kutum is concerned, So Coutume is a roastery that has been created in 2011. So more or less when specialty coffee started in France, in Paris. We were not the first, we were not the only ones, but we were among the first, let's say. And the whole experience shows that it is very important to have a clear idea of what you want to do. And the idea of Coutume was to offer a single origin coffee, comparing to blend of origins, to reveal the authenticity of the terroir, and to be sure that the know-how of the producer is well revealed as well. It is very challenging, it is very risky, so it is very important to have a very clear view on where to go with that single origin, to be sure that your coffee will remain accessible at the level of price and at the level of taste. So it's important to know your product and to know your market to start with.
And there's one thing that's interesting that you said, that you when you were sourcing coffees, because you source specific coffees for wholesale customers as well. And one way that you're looking into it is like sometimes for them, you're going to source like a different quality point from farms that you already work with. So you have like, let's say coffee A at Coutume, and it's at certain quality points because you still need your business to be like differentiated. And you have like coffee B from the same farm that goes to a wholesale customer that maybe like is a bit more price sensitive.
Yeah, so the thing is that when you work into coffee business and when you start to have like a established relationship with some producer, something that is very important to maintain quality is to have a constant relation behind and to have a relation of trust. So very often what's happening is that you start working with a producer a bit like from like casuality at the beginning. So you like the product, the price was okay, so you start, you offer, and it works. And so you say, okay, so I'm gonna keep working on that product because I mean it's working, and yeah, and maybe this producer cannot offer more volume because of a certain reason, because it's small, because it's a small producer, or because it's the biggest one but has other clients. So you look for another way like to develop your relation with that producer, and it can match actually with the segmentation of your own clients. So you can find another product that you buy from him that may be like a higher volume and lower price, or on the contrary, higher quality coffee with a higher price that you're gonna put somewhere else in your offer. But you see that there is always this connection that is very clear between what you buy and why you're buying and to who you're going to sell, depending on the way you have segmented your own offer.
Can you explain a little bit about how you segment consumers? Because I remember when we spoke, you were talking about espresso machines. So like the difference, the type of espresso machine that they use is kind of like, okay, I know they can have this coffee or that coffee.
Yeah, so it's important to say that Coutume, in addition to do only single origin, also do only omni roast. So it's very challenging at the moment of like making some specific preparation. But yeah, so let's say that in France we're still a quite Latin country, and so I would say that the highest percentage of beverage is probably espresso or espresso-based beverage. So cappuccino, latte, flat white. But so espresso, I think I don't have the volume exactly, the percentage, but I can say that it's probably still 80, maybe probably more % of the market. It's changing a little bit through specialty coffee mainly. But for a very long time, like filter coffee wasn't considered at all in France, and in Paris, we have this tradition of brasserie. So when you do an omni roast, so omni roast means, for people that are not really aware of it, that you can use this coffee either for espresso or or for filter extraction brewing. So it means two things: that you need to find a good roasting profile that can be omni roast, but depending on what coffee you're buying, it's not going to be exactly the same profile if you buy from Brazil or from Ethiopia, if it's a washed coffee or a natural coffee, because the qualities, aromatic qualities of the coffee are different, and its potential as espresso or as filter are also different. So you might choose to say, okay, this coffee will be only for espresso, although it's an omni roast, so you're going to make a general roast, but doing some recommendation. So here we're tackling a second very fundamental aspect of like educating your consumer, giving some tips on which kind of machine should I use, which kind of equipment, what kind of ratio, what kind of even cup, what kind of pairing I might do. And this is also, again, it's a whole chain going together, and you need to take all that thing into consideration when you're buying coffee. When I'm buying this coffee, I know that is because it's gonna go for my clients at our restaurant or coffee shop. When I'm buying another one, I know that it's gonna be more from a larger public, younger public maybe, new kind of coffee lovers, incomers, you know. So everything needs to be clear somehow in the way you buy and you market your coffee.
And it's about like the sophistication of the machine that they use as well. Like if they're using like a La Marzocco, or if they're using like a bean to cup machine, or they're using, yeah.
Obviously, but still, I need to make sure, my work is to make sure that whatever coffee machine that you are using, it is possible for you to have a good and decent coffee that you will enjoy. If I'm not able to do that, I'm already like cutting my market. I can choose to do that. It's not a problem. If I know that I'm only a Parisian kind of coffee roaster, okay, that's fine. But at the moment you want to touch a larger kind of a community, and you want people to enter into your world of sensory, of beverage creation or whatever, you need to assume that you're going to have to make clear choices about it.
And I guess what you mean as well is that like France is still very like a very traditional like espresso drinking market. And when you're talking about your wholesale customers, this is like, oh, a lot of wholesale customers, they come to us, they come to specialty because of positioning, or because as smaller companies than like the mass market companies, I guess we can offer more engagement and a better customer service, etc. And then giving but these companies, they're actually a bit scared that if they go with a specialty roaster, their consumers won't like the taste, how the coffee tastes. So do you think that, like, given everything that's happening now, you're actually having to pay more attention or be more customer centric in that way? Like you're having to give the people what they want in terms of the taste as well, in terms of the sensory, because of people being more sensitive.
Okay, I think we need to find a balance between that, because we need, no, but I mean, specialty coffee roasters, they create their own project because they had an idea. So it's very important for you to be also clear on your position, and not like to be just an opportunist, a new opportunist. I mean, it's important to remain open, obviously, not to say, hey, I'm only doing light roast and everything else I'm not very interested, you know? So, I mean, you need to listen to your customers, but you also need to explain that your position is this one, and to explain why. Why do I want to be different from Starbucks? Why do I want to be different from the uniformity of a product? Why do I want to position myself as an actor, a coffee roaster, that is offering you a very specific sensorial experience, you know? So I think if we want to make our way through this very competitive market, because right now the specialty coffee has become very competitive with a lot of like new incomers that are also having the heritage of the oldest of the one that were there before. And it's good because we're a little bit challenged, we are a bit tackled. We need to find new ways to go into the market. We need to be very creative, but still we have a position. In the case of Coutume, it's like we only make single origin. Sorry guys, if you want a blend, we're not gonna make it. Or if you want like a blend, explain us what are you looking for? What do you mean by blend actually? Because I think a lot of people don't exactly know what a blend is. If it's a blend from origin, no problem, we can do that. But we have our way to do, and we have our only roast because we want people to be able to enjoy the coffee, whichever kind of preparation they are making. And this is a kind of position where we're gonna be stuck.
But you did develop a slightly darker, like a different roast profile with your team. You said like that was a big challenge as well.
Yeah, that's true. Because we did because we are open. No, because at the very beginning, Coutume position was really much more on like restaurants and coffee shop and hotels and restaurant mainly. So with very good like espresso machine. But we developed into some new kind of business like office, and the kind of machine is not exactly the same. So yeah, obviously we cannot be blind. We need also to understand that every machine doesn't have the same potential. And in the case of La Marzocco or even a Cimbali, it's not exactly the same that will be a DeLonghi or a Jura. And so we need to work on when we have some clients that are going to have a specific offer for the office, for example, there is no problem in sourcing and defining a specific profile for that kind of client, as long as we have enough volume to do so. Because this impacts the production work and the times that the production team is going to spend in developing this new product. But it's no more than developing a new product inside of a segmentation. You know what I mean? So this is a normal business.
Okay, and one thing that I was thinking as well is that it might be a bit strange to some people that they're like, oh, we're talking about accessible coffees and she's talking about only sourcing single origins. It's like, oh, it seems like a bit on different ends of the spectrum there. But you have you're the way that you structure the menu, and this is not necessarily like a COVID thing as we were talking before. The way you structure the menu have in different categories, I think it's a way that also helps to make the coffees more accessible with it, even within the more complex categories, because you create like a narrative around it. It's easy to understand. It is easier to take people in a journey. Can you tell people a little bit about the categories, how you price it, etc.?
Sure. Yeah, we're really happy of the work that has been doing on that issue. Actually, it's a massive element of communication to consumers, how you are branding and how you are explaining the way you build your offer. So in the case of Coutume, we created 3 categories. So the first one is called Appreciate. The second one is called Explore. And the last one is called Savor. And we also have a very last one that is called Grand Cru. And each of its category has a level of complexity that is different from the point of view of the consumer, but also from the point of view of the purchaser, green coffee purchaser, I mean. And inside each of these category, you can have different kind of single origin. So for example, in the appreciate category, I will have like the classical, let's say, Mogiana, Minas Gerais, very like sweet and round and chocolatey Brazilian coffee. But I can also have like Colombian from Sierra Nevada in the north of Colombia that are also, they have the reputation of being very, very sweet, also with a bit more acidity. And so you can have 2 or 3 coffee of that kind of like flavor profile, but they will have from a consumer point of view, they will cost the same price because I'm working myself on the margin. So there might be a coffee that is costing me a bit more, but the other one costs a bit less. And so I can arrange my own margin and make my business sustainable this way also. So you have this appreciate, explore, flavor, and the level of complexity and the level of quality and the level of price is getting higher and higher. So it's really good for the final consumer, but also for the wholesale, actually, because sometimes the issue we have is stock management. Apart from inflation time, normally we are always like playing with stock. So how am I going to manage to put that client on that coffee and make sure that it's going to last long enough until reaching the new season? Or how am I going to explain that there is a need to have a change in the coffee because coffee is a seasonal country that needs to shift sometimes. So the good thing is that you can explain to your client, okay, so you have this coffee, but please don't worry, because you're gonna, if you have another coffee in 6 months, it's gonna be the same kind of profile and it's gonna enter in the same category. And maybe it's even gonna enter in the same country or the same farm, just gonna be like a neighboring plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess from the consumer's perspective, it makes it very easy, the fact that it's the same price for the whole category. So like I don't have to think about the price when I'm choosing the coffee. Is one less factor to consider. It's like, oh, I can just look at what I want and kind of like, and I can play around, get to know more the coffees like that.
That's the whole idea behind.
And I think like from an educational point of view, I think that's very powerful in how you can engage consumers. There's something else that you mentioned to me before about consumer engagement that I think it's very important, is you said you had a number of coffee shops in France and that you opened some new coffee shops. Some of them were not doing very well and some others were selling great. Like the numbers that were coming from them were very good. And you had a particular one that was doing very well. Can you tell the story about that and why is it that shop was so successful?
Yeah, so it really depends because each shop has a different location, different like kind of public. Some are going well because it's always very crowded, but some other are not especially crowded but are doing well. So what's happening over there? I really believe in the ability of the barista to be this or of the staff to be this connection between the product and the final consumer, because and it can feel like engaged into the product and into the company, hopefully. Yeah, so it really depends because sometimes you have a great team that is like just like making like self-motivation to each other, and this happiness like is feeling around and is like spreading around, and the clients come back. And I do believe that the success is not possible only with a good coffee and with a good marketing strategy. We absolutely need, and I think Amaris will talk about it like even in more details that I will, that we absolutely need to rely on people, because coffee is everything about generating link and having like social impact. So yeah, I think that's a key.
I think Amaris. Well, I'll ask her about it afterwards anyway. I just want to say that the guests are very shy. You can please ask questions. Mafra will take note and we can ask them to Alice and Amaris afterwards. Q&A, chat, whatever you prefer. But Alice, my last thing for you is, because that's the thing that you said to me that was like really like, okay, this is a sentence that I will remember from this conversation. It's like, you said, it's like, let me quote, we need to find a way to get closer to commodity without being commodity, because the crucial difference between the two of them is the philosophy behind them. That commodities, Coca-Cola is uniformity, and that it's hard to find the balance between like having a coffee that's accessible in taste and also make you differentiated. Can you explain a little bit about what's the philosophy? Why do you think that we need to become closer to commodity without becoming exactly like commodity?
So the whole idea behind specialty coffee, as far as deep as I've been into it, that's my whole idea, and that's what I think really like comes out of the whole like project of specialty coffee at the very beginning, is that it should not spread uniformity. We are not like doing a mass consuming through specialty coffee, and everything that makes a specialty coffee closer to mass consuming is maybe not exactly specialty coffee anymore. It remains some kind of very differentiated and product of differentiation, because it's really showed the authenticity, it revealed the specificity of a producer, of a product into a terroir, and it's really related to authenticity. What I meant, and I want to be very clear about that, by we should get closer to commodity, is just in the way, how do we get closer to a larger range of consumer without doing mass production? That's a problematic that we need to solve. I don't have the answer.
Have you solved it already? Or you don't have the answer? Okay. Okay. I was gonna say.
I think I've been talking a lot about how we do that. It's just that something that for me is no, I mean, in the way that I can give like some new opinions about it. It's also a lot about all the intention that you have behind, in the way that you want your product to be transparent, to have positive impact on the farmers, on the communities, on the consumer education. So it's whole, but it's very related to the difference between mass culture and unstandardized or counterculture somehow. There is a coffee called like that. So you know, the idea is really to understand that we have a lot of like issues of differentiation, a way to differentiate. I think at the level of quality, commodity coffee has improved a lot over the past 10 to 15 years. And with new laws and regulation entering into force in Europe, probably even the commodity market is gonna have to also improve its sustainability aspects through zero deforestation, etc., etc. So we're gonna have to work even more deeper into the notion of traceability.
Oh yeah, because everything's going to be traceable now, or it's going to have to be traceable now. So
suppose we still don't know exactly. I mean, we know exactly, but how it's going to be like implemented, we don't have all the answer. But for sure, there's going to be a burden on proof that will need to be like shown by the big companies, which wasn't the case before. Before each like coffee can enter and go out of the European market or within the European market. So it is an important step. But I want to say that in specialty coffee, and I think many of the coffee roasters in Europe and in the United States, the way that we apprehend like the notion of traceability is not only about like where the coffee has grown, but all the ecosystem around. So how do people live out there? What is the coffee culture out there? How people grow coffee? And so every single information that is giving you indication on is my coffee good or not? Not only because of taste, but because of what there is behind.
if anything, the added traceability that's being required, I guess, is going to make commodity coffee a little bit closer. It's going to bring it a bit closer to specialty in the way that you need traceability, I guess. But we could spend hours talking about that. I'm not gonna go there because I'm aware that we have like time constraints.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump to Amaris, but thank you,
Yeah.
Alice. And there's some questions for you for afterwards as well. Amaris, I don't know if you want to comment on anything that Alice said before I start asking you about the village.
Oh no, I so appreciate moments like this to be able to learn from like other companies how they're thinking about these problems, because I feel like we have similar stories, the problems that we're trying to solve for, and we're doing it in different ways in our different cities. And I think everything you're talking about building a more inclusive definition of quality, people talk about that in theory, and we've talked about it a long time in the industry, but there are so many practical applications that you have to really define, you have to kind of get into the actual real world expressions of them. I think that is actually one of the silver linings of the pandemic, that necessity was the mother of that invention for us. It sort of pushed us to these places where we're applying our values in a lot of these creative ways that I think are really actually will have more important long-term, sustainability and social impact. So I love hearing about everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
In Amaris, like, so I think you have and Joe Coffee has a very good example of how you bring how you translate these values to like day to day, with the example of the village, because like you were saying that you're I don't remember now if it was end of 2022 or a bit earlier, but it was like you're looking into sales, you're trying to analyze what coffees are performing well, what coffees are not performing so well, how different shops are doing, etc. And that made you like rethink your menu like for your single origins. In some ways, like you still like you're doing the single origins, the coffees that you're sourcing are the same, but you've taken kind of like a different approach to what Alice did, that you created a brand name for them in the village. Can you start by explaining what the village is, and then maybe afterwards we go into the process of how you decided to do that.
Yeah, so we have like a similar concept. We have a coffee on our menu, or a product on our menu, that's called the Village, and it's all single origin coffees, kind of like back to back to back. But the overarching name and the branding of the coffee are always the same. But the components may change. So we sort of are treating it a little bit like our other permanent products. Like we have a house drip coffee, we have a house espresso, things like that. But it's not a blend. It's a single origin coffee, but it sort of will always look the same year round. Just the names, the components of the coffee that's in it will stay the same, or will change component to component. But it's always women produced. So that's the intention and the goal behind the coffee, that it will always be a women produced coffee inside, and always a light roast.
Can you explain where the name comes from? Because there's like a concept behind the name as well, of the brand.
Yeah, so Joe, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. I haven't been there since day one, but our first location, our first cafe, was in the West Village. So a lot of our branding is sort of centered around the village. The founders were really intentional about being like people forward. So they didn't even start as a roasting company. They started as just wanting to create a really solid, safe, like third place that was sort of like the beginnings of coffee in New York City, having a good third place to be and come together. And throughout the past few years, as we've developed more tangible expressions of our sourcing values, we sort of have always used internally the phrase, it takes a village to produce coffee. It's so many hands touch it. So we were like, let's really lean into this. Women are the heart and backbone of many villages, especially, in rural areas. So we were like, let's just lean into that and have it sort of be passive education. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the story of coffee as well as maybe our brand. So sort of some of those differentiation and value types of conversations passively, hopefully, comes across.
And how did you where were you when you decided to do this? So like you're, because you say you told me that you feel a bit, you were very nervous into doing the kind of analysis that you had to do, and I saw the spreadsheets, and for me, I'm not a numbers person as well, so it's like I find it very complicated and stuff. So like how was it that you got there? What did you have to do? How was it like doing the sales analysis?
Yeah, so that was the hardest part, I think, of the past few years for our jobs. Like probably any green buyer anywhere in the world in the last few years, it's been really difficult to gauge, what are we gonna do next year? Or I think especially if you're tasking yourself with how to be ethical, or like us, we kind of have like a commitment to long-term relationships, and sometimes that really does mean forward contracting. I mean, for like by and large for us, that means forward contracting. That way we can tell someone, okay, like we're going to commit to this volume next year, even if, harvest hasn't started or you don't know what your quality is like, that's sort of not part of the conversations earlier on. But that's a really hard thing to do when you have no idea what your volume is going to be like. And, even in 2021, we were like, okay, are we stabilizing yet? Obviously, the answer was no. 2022 was sort of the same conversation. And so we were really just bummed out a lot that we were trying to figure out ways to not have to go back to producers and say, okay, actually, I think I have to contract less for next year because we're just not doing as much volume as we thought we would. That was a really huge problem. And I think it made me nervous because, it's just like, it's bad news. No one wants to have bad news conversations. And also because this is this like responsibility, it's not the producer's fault that we're not doing the volume that we want. And I think that came with like some pressure to say, this is a problem only we can solve if we have any opportunity for creative solutions right now. Now is the time, and this is the work that we're uniquely responsible for. So how do we do it? And part of that process, because I didn't know at the time, was, I really looked at every single one of our channels. Okay, our wholesale customers, our retail cafes. We have actually a really big footprint of retail cafes in New York City. Well, we sell online, which was nice. That grew in the pandemic. And then looked at every single coffee to see how did these things perform in each one of those channels, which was a monumental amount of work. But I think that really taught me how important data is. I do have like a research background, I guess. I went to grad school. I like it. It's not that in itself isn't the thing that scared me. I think the thing that scared me a little bit was the business implications, because I don't have a business degree. I have amazing bosses who are super supportive, but it's like, okay, again, the buck stops here. Like I've got to figure out this thing. And a lot of money is in the balance, either we, overcommit, and which puts our business at jeopardy, or we undercommit. And if we grow, again, that puts our business at jeopardy, or puts our values at jeopardy. Or yeah, like it puts the people who grow the coffee, like we can't really give them good information or intel, which makes us look like not a very reliable business partner, which goes against what we want to do. So it was like, I was like, kept me up at night. So I think the data actually helped me feel a little bit like comfortable and confident. Okay, like we can make the best choice that we can with the information that we have. And that felt like, I felt like something I could hold on to. So all that analysis and work, and I just would check it religiously. So I would make myself these, spreadsheets and check like against historical precedents. Like obviously maybe what we did in 2019 was the better thing to compare to, not 2020 for obvious reasons. And so I would just kind of like compare everything every single month or every single financial period to see like, okay, where are we now? And I still do that now, not in the really intense way that I did before, but because like we're really, again, we're kind of rebuilding historical precedents. So as a green buyer, like this is sort of the task that we have. Like maybe not every single one of our coffee categories or products is growing in the same way. So that's fine, but we really need to be able to share the best kind of information that we have with people when we're trying to talk about forward contracting. I think that was a really important lesson, and it kind of helped like snap me out of like imposter syndrome, you know, like I kind of did go into my job as green buyer being like, okay, great. Like, I think I finally have, it brought me a little bit of healing to be like, okay, I have some skill sets. I have this like biracial background. I have some things that I can contribute that are uniquely me and my experience, and having some cultural fluency in Central America. I was like, okay, I feel good about myself having this great, amazing opportunity to be socially responsible with this vision that I have. And then the business layer was like, oh shit, like I don't have the tools. But then I was like, okay, we'll build it as we go. And that felt attainable, and that felt like, okay, I can be responsible with all of the like the hats that I need to wear for my job. You know, if we can do it like this and be as honest as we can with everybody, I think it feels like we can make the best choices for us.
I think everyone can, well, I think a lot of people can relate to that, because going into the business side of things, if you don't have the training, like you have to do it. And it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to do it anyway. I would feel the same. But so what was it that you saw in the end? Because you said
Right.
you said it's like, oh, there's this one single origin Colombian coffee produced by a family. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
one, okay, this one didn't drop. Everything else is kind of like not doing very well, but this one is staying strong.
Yeah, great point. So we have a lot of single origin coffees on our menu, or we did for a long time. And we have had our longest term relationship actually. It was the first coffee that we bought when we started roasting coffee in 2013. Because as I said, the owners didn't start roasting when they opened the company. They started 10 years in. So the longest relationship we have is this with this family in Colombia. We buy coffee. They're 9 siblings, super small holders. We buy coffee from them as kind of like a group lot. And that did so well. And we think because we've just had it on our shelves and on our menu forever, and it's year round. So they're in an amazing area where the microclimate makes it possible for them to harvest multiple times a year. So we're able to get multiple shipments of coffee from them a year. It doesn't ever come off the shelf. And we love leaning into that relationship because it feels like a really good one for us. And so the other coffees that would potentially come back every year, but for a smaller like chunk of the year, maybe we would have, a women produced coffee from Rwanda on the menu for 3 months, but then it would come off the menu. And customers who, of course, don't have much education would be emailing me like, where did this coffee go? And I'd be like, oh, don't worry, it's coming back next year. And I would always think, oh, these are great conversations to have with people to teach people about seasonality. But like, I don't think they would get it, So I think we were really looking at, okay, every other single origin coffee decreased in sales and volume, or it took a lot longer for us to go through it than we originally planned. So historically, if it would maybe be, I would think, okay, buy 3 months worth of volume or something, or contract 3 months of volume, maybe that would take us 6 months or 8 months. And so that sort of would throw everything off, and we would have really long, inventory. And then of course, it totally fucks with seasonality, because then people have no concept of when something is actually being grown or produced, and the coffee itself isn't really like tasting as good as it did, of course, when it landed, because you're using it 6 months later. We all know those problems. So we just learned, okay, what can we take away from this really great success story of the single origin coffee? And we thought, okay, things that are obvious are it's consistent, it's always there. So the familiarity, there's opportunity for people to know and recognize it on the shelf. It's brewed in our cafes more frequently, than all the other smaller lots, because it's easy for our cafe staff to dial in and talk about, because it's just always there. It's a little bit also easy to have a tagline for our staff to talk about it. Oh, it's our longest standing relationship. So it's, a quick interaction in a high volume cafe, easy for folks to like, just spit out a one-liner to get people to be like, okay, and maybe they take it and agree, that's a nice thing to talk about, a value add. And also it feels like it's the kind of thing that no matter how much staff turnover we have, which was a really big problem in the last few years for us, it's an easy thing to teach about. And it's an easy thing for people to remember. And especially if, you're new to the coffee industry, so many of our new people are like new to the coffee industry. it's a lot to learn. The learning curve is very, very steep, and we ask, quite a lot of them learning all these things. So of course, I think it's sort of an easy thing to understand. You're probably not going to be able to market or answer questions about every single coffee offering that we have on day one. So it's probably the easiest thing for them to remember and talk about. If a customer has like a question, oh, what kind of coffee should I buy? Probably easy for them to point out the one that's most familiar to them, which might be that one also because, it's been around the whole time they've been working at the company, and something else may have already come off the menu, they haven't learned what's new. So we felt, okay, all these things teach us. People really want consistency. People want a little bit of familiarity, and the price sensitivity variable can go away if we create a product that's consistent in that way. Similar to what Alice was saying, we can keep the price for this product the same all year round. So customers are also not having to make a decision based on price. And that helps a lot. New York City, we have, of course, the luxury of people who are very wealthy who don't bat an eye at what they are charged at a coffee shop. But we also have these extremes, like at either end of, the economic spectrum. And so it does feel like maybe a really like important, compassionate thing to do to try to take away some of that decision fatigue when, try to find a better accessible price point for them.
I remember I was talking to another roaster about our conversation, and he was like, oh, but consumers come back to us because we have all this variety, because the coffee changes and stuff, like because we're going to have something different or something exciting that's going to bring them through the door. But that's very different for you. Do you think that it's more like a matter of having something that's very easy for the staff to communicate, or do you think there's also like that familiarity really does play a role? Because you get like this monthly or weekly check-ins from the coffee shops, and they say how things are going, what's selling well and stuff. So what do you think is behind the success of the brand versus the success of having like all this diversity that in theory is very exciting?
Yeah, so I do still occasionally get emails from people being like, why don't you have more diverse offerings? And I always lean into it in the best way that I can and say, we don't, we're not chasing trends. We're not trying to, have a lot of variety for variety's sake. Like, I think we have variety in ways that make sense to us. And the thing that we really care about, it's sort of, again, like Alice's point, like you really do, like you have to kind of like know and understand your value set to be able to sort of like mark it out for them and be like, we're making decisions that are really good for us. And we're also making decisions that we think are really good for our relationships. Those are the things that kind of trump anyone's need for, like a new coffee every week. And especially for us, like coming out of the last 4 years, this is actually what the majority of our customer base is telling us, because we did have multiple single origins and they weren't selling. So why would we, lean into a practice that's just not healthy for our business? So I think for us, it really has taught us that creating, okay, so I don't know if I told you this before, Louisa, but we have a coffee, like the values, vision, and mission statement that we use internally for us to be like, okay, this is sort of our driving factor, our, guiding principle, and we teach it to new staff. And we have this thing where everyone who's new to the company has to take this little like intro to Joe type of a class to learn about, why we do things the way we do, what do we care about, how we really, think hospitality is expressed. Anyway, one of the things that we always talk about is like our mission statement is like, okay, so to benefit others and play an active role in every community where we work, work conditions allow. So that's a really important thing for us, because it's like if we really think we want to benefit, be active in everywhere that we work, that means like, a lot of things for us. It's not this is how we're expressing that, and so I do sometimes share that with people who come to me and ask, why can't we have more, anaerobic whatever on our menu? And I'm like, there's really nothing wrong with that. We're not, by doing things this way, it isn't a judgment statement on anyone who does things anywhere else. But again, like Alice said, we're listening to our customers, we're listening to the communities, like the people that we're working with and buying coffee from. So we're making these choices in those ways. And our staff actually do, so as you mentioned, we get these check-ins from our general managers every 2 weeks. And they always report on little sections, you know, how their stores are doing and what their personnel looks like and coffee quality. And so they'll say, they'll make these great notes, you know, oh, this week we're brewing the Village, and they get to brew whatever, you know, whatever coffee they want. And they'll tell us, you know, oh, such and such customer really enjoyed it, or we've been brewing it for 2 weeks because people come in and ask for it specifically. Maybe we'll switch it up in the next few weeks, but like, you know, we're kind of gonna keep it rolling while we can, or things like that. So I think especially for folks who are new to understanding any kind of social component to coffee, it really has proven to do that work, that passive education, that like, okay, gender equity is an important issue in coffee supply streams, or the humanity aspect of coffee is something that people should care about without really going too heavy-handed. And that has been a really nice thing to see, because, you know, customers do get bombarded with everything that they should care about, certifications or whatever. So this does feel like a kind of a nice way to meet them where they are. And that wasn't really like, you know, a very, very intentional goal at the beginning. It was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could bring people more awareness to the gender equity issues in coffee? Because we have learned, obviously, the reason this product was so easy to put together or quick to come together was as we've become a more traceable, ethical company over the last, you know, however many years, 5 years or something like that, we've really been intentional. We have been buying more coffee sourced by women, and we have learned a lot about the importance and like really like outsized impact that investing in women can have. So it has felt nice to see that affirmed a little bit just in people's consumption of the coffee. It's not going to change the way we source it, but it's been interesting to see how people have been engaging with it at the cafe level.
So thank you, Amaris. I'm very aware that we don't have that much time and we have some questions. So Mafer, can you join to just like direct the questions here to both Alice and Amaris? And I've seen that Carissa has her hand up.
Yeah.
Carissa, I don't know if you want to say anything, maybe just type something to us. Oh, she turned it down. Oh, okay. Maybe it was just an accident. Anyway, Mafer, go on. We probably will go like 5 minutes past the time to see if we can cover at least like 3 questions. And the questions that we don't cover, Alicia and Amaris, I'll send them to you, and then maybe we can share a reply with everyone in a follow-up email afterwards. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Mafer, I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, okay. So like Tom has a question, and it says you give lots of tips to your customers to get the best out of your coffee. What sort of tips do you get, or what would you like from producers about the coffee?
This is a hard one. I think, okay, it's interesting to see the dialectic between what consumer wants to know about producers and what producer wants to know about consumers. It's always very, so that's more the way I'm practicing it. You, as far as buyer is concerned, if you want to make specific choice for your offer because you are engaged for women cause, environmental cause, or social cause, you're gonna ask some specific question about different kind of elements that can help you to promote your own vision into your offer and up to your consumers, I guess. But I would also like to insist on the fact that it's very important to know well your market segmentation and the way your consumers are buying your coffee, the kind of reaction they have when they buy such kind of coffees. Because it's really something, I think we are very lucky, Amaris and I, to be able to bring to the producer the positive reaction and the way their product can have such a success into our offer sometimes, especially when it's long-time relationship. And this little thing that you can bring to them is also very important. So there is a full interaction between what consumer can have from producer and what producer can have from consumer. Amaris, maybe you want to add something?
No, I think it's totally true. I think maybe something else, like if we're talking about like like something I might want from a producer, like sometimes I do usually like tell them, okay, this is like I don't want to put the burden of storytelling on you, but this is how I think I'm gonna like talk about this coffee. Does it sound okay with you? And I usually leave it there to make it yeah, like as easy as possible, so they're not spending, you know, an exorbitant amount of time, but like I'm trying to present to them, this is how I think I want to share, you know, parts of your story. Make sure you can fact check me, make sure my memory is correct too. But I also remember trying to talk to producers about the village because it would make a very big change. We would be putting the biggest space on the coffee label on the bag, you know, to say the village, not their names, which is how we would sell that in the past. I was worried that they would be like, oh, you know, like, are you trying to push me out of the marketing? But all of them were like, if it means you get to sell more coffee and if it means you get to, you know, keep buying more coffee or grow that volume, amazing, do it. That was a very important lesson for me to say, like, you know, maybe the assumptions we have about how, you know, they want to be expressed, like, it, you know, they have a business they're managing also. So I think, you know, having the ability to have that relationship and foundation, like you said too at the top, Alice, you know, having the ability to just talk about these things openly means you will be learning very quickly from them, like what's important to them. And sometimes it will be that business component.
All right. So next question. What are some of your best arguments to give some of your new customers to explain your values and balance it with being accessible?
I think that one was asked when Alice was presenting. So Alice, I don't know if you wanna jump on that one. You're muted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is our whole like branding strategy actually. So if that person wants to go on Coutume's website, maybe it will help them like to understand, or just on the Instagram, we have some like explanation on how we have built our branding and marketing communication up to our customers. And even some people, when they go to the coffee shops, they can see what we call the 3 category of appreciate, explore, and savor. I mean, it's really a way to go into our world. So in that sense, we base that on sensory aspects, like we have in our package, we have not only the category, but we have also what like a simplified flavor wheel with like very basic taste. So that people that are like understandable for people, not too complicate like a taste descriptor, but like very like tasting family, like a cacao, a spicy, a fruity, floral, and stuff like that. We also have like pattern that is very personalized for each and every coffee. So all this like branding and design elements, it helps a lot, I think, for consumer that are reaching Coutume for the very first time to like navigate into our universe, and for the one that are accustomed to our products, like to find their way into the environment that they like somehow. And as far as we are concerned, at the level of like information we can provide, we have all information of traceability and connection with the farmers and everything, but it's not the way we're gonna like reach people at the very first time, except if they ask, for example, do you have a coffee that are produced from women? Okay, so we can, it is not something that we are especially focusing on, but we do have some of that kind. If they want only like certified or like agroforestry kind of coffee producing system, we can answer that, but we're not going to reach them telling them, yeah, you know, this coffee is fantastic because it's organic certified. No, we really are like approaching the sensorial experience of and like the familiarity of what coffee brings to you. I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but somehow.
Well, they'll have to go to the website then to get the full
No,
answer.
but for sure. I didn't want to bring any packet because I don't want to do any advertisement or whatever, but I do suggest people, I'm gonna put it in the discussion if it's okay for you, so that people just can see, because or on the Instagram of Coutume, because we have made some very like clear explanation of what we meant to do through this categorization. And I will add that it's not only very useful for the consumers, but it is also very useful for me to share with producers or exporters or partners when I'm working for the very first time with someone, or when I'm approached like to have new sample that I have to evaluate, and that I'm explaining, okay, so you need to understand that I have different kind of segmentation, different like product category, and in each category I have more or less volume and that range of price. So it's so easy for them like to understand, okay, I know what I have in my farm and what I can offer them, and if it can fit or not. So it's a very useful tool both at the upstream and the downstream of the value chain.
Perfect. And another question, I think you both can answer. In order to match your consumers' needs, is it possible to say which is the most important for you, or in bean variation, roast profile?
I leave the word to Amaris.
That's a hard one. We do have we do have coffees on our menu that are roasted, that we have like darker roasts. So we have a spectrum. That is actually one of the ways that we also are really passionate about accessibility. We have a lot of old school New Yorkers who want coffee that tastes like coffee, you know. So for us, I think it's sort of like a mixture, you know, because just like a chef, you know, will choose the right ingredients for the preparation or whatever the dish they want. You have to choose the right coffees to go into, you know, a dark roast, and you have to choose the right coffees that go into a light roast. So for us, and we do actually some omni roast, you know, things, not all, but it does feel like you kind of have to balance a lot of those variables, depending on what you want to accomplish. For us, we will also, you know, use relationship as the lens for that. So we might, in a single farm, you know, be purchasing coffees from them, telling them, okay, this coffee is going to be going into a medium roast coffee. Do you have other coffees that taste like this? You know, as you were saying, Alice, you know, like talking to them about like the profile of the coffees that they have, that they grow. You know, do you have coffees that taste like this? Because we're also looking for, you know, filling this volume of this type of coffee profile for our darker roast coffees. So we can buy multiple levels of quality, many different types of coffees from the same producer. So we can invest more across a range of products in a single relationship. And generally it also is really nice. Once you have a good collaborative relationship with somebody, it makes it a lot easier. So like I actually think there's a business benefit to like knowing what you want to sell and then being able to express that back to the producer so they can collaborate with you on what might work best. So like in the example of actually that family in Colombia, they're named Guarnizo. We buy occasionally, like one of the siblings will do these micro lots, and so we maybe have someone who's competing in the competition. So we might be like interested in telling him, hey, come competition season, let us know what you're working on, because we might purchase it for something for one of our competitors, which we did this year. We also buy like a very good, you know, chunk of the higher end of their medium range of like quality all year round for that product that's just like under their name. And then we buy a lot of their lower grade coffee that actually we have to pool with them and their neighbors because they don't produce enough for a coffee that's in our house drip, you know, 6 months out of the year. And then we also buy another of their next lower range, again with them and their neighbors, that we get decaffeinated. So it's sort of like, putting as much or like proving with our buying dollars, like as much investment as we can. And so it doesn't really end up becoming about like the process as much as like we have all these different products we know we have to sell. How do we do that? Invest in the relationship. I know that's like a long-winded answer and not really maybe as tight of a response as maybe you wanted, but that's how I guess we would approach it.
Just wanted to know if you choose origin or being variation to differentiate between customers. No, I'm joking. Thank you very much, you guys. And I'm aware we still have a couple of questions that haven't been answered, but because of time, we're gonna wrap up. I'll send this to Amaris and Alice. We'll answer via email. If you're not signed up to the newsletter, let me know. Just send me an email at luisa@algrano.com and I'll add you. I'll make sure you receive it. Next week on Thursday, we have the second round of this training session with Equator Coffees and Cafe Maher. They're going to talk about a very different topic. It's more about how to widen reach through online presence and product innovation. So also very interesting, also very pertinent to the moment that we are now. Everyone's already registered for that, so I'll hope to see you guys then, and we'll share more about like the recording of this conversation with Alice and Amaris in the coming week as well. Guys, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Amaris, Alice, you guys were amazing.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Everyone.
Bye.
Nice to see you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Mafer, you have to